What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's weather update for Monday, April 3rd, 2023. In today's video, we are going to discuss several things. First off, we're going to discuss a possibility of a blizzard. There are blizzard warnings up for portions of the Dakota, the potential for severe weather on the south side of that in the central states, and 3 days, not one, not two, but 3 days of severe weather expected from the central states through to the east, and a potential rainy mess for the Masters Golf Tournament down in Georgia. Taking a look at the national picture here, you can see our convective system that was forming over Texas yesterday is finally now over Georgia and portions of Florida. The last of the severe storms are starting to push out. And in the northwest, we do see energy is gathering, but if you look in California, quiet picture today. Over Michigan, there's some sort of a boundary that has set up there, and that's actually prompted flash flood watches in Michigan, and parts of New York State are going to get in on that action as well. You can see a large area here of high wind watches, warnings, wind advisories, and even red flag warnings up from Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, all the way west through to California. That's one thing that still exists. It's still windy there. Blizzard warnings, they're up for portions of the Dakotas. The National Weather Service is going with 10 to 20 inches in some of these areas. I'm thinking that's a little bit overdone, but the one thing that's not overdone, I agree in there being blizzard warnings because you could have wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. I think the snowfall amounts will be closer to 10 to 12 inches. We'll see, though. Maybe someone does get 20 inches, but keep in mind, it's April. All right, taking a look at storm reports from yesterday. There were 86 total storm reports, 1 tornado report, 26 wind reports, or 28 wind reports, one which was really high, 57 regular hail reports, 3 large hail reports. Advance this to today, 2 tornado reports so far today, 22 wind reports, 1 which was a high wind report, making 23 total, and just 2 hail reports for today. So thankfully, while there was some storms today, thankfully a quieter day than we saw the last 2 days. But then we get onto the SPC forecast, and this is where things get really complicated. So as you can see here, there are twin moderate risks, double moderate risks. One over Iowa and Illinois, another one that is over Arkansas and portions of eastern Oklahoma and portions of Missouri. While any storm that does form tomorrow could quickly turn severe and maybe perhaps produce a strong tornado, the question is, will we see any storms form tomorrow? Probably more of a question for that for the southern area opposed to the northern area. I think there's a higher chance that there'll be convection in the northern area closer to the low. In the southern area, though the instability is going to be there tomorrow, all the dynamics will be there tomorrow. The problem is capping. Capping is a layer in the atmosphere that can limit cloud growth, it can limit storm development, and if the capping's strong enough, it can prevent storms from forming altogether. And some models are showing capping. Or some models show the capping breaking late and the storm threat being so delayed that it turns into a Wednesday event. So this is something that's evolving. We still have to watch it, and I'll show it to you in the models. Let's take a look at the day 3 outlook as well. First off, though, here are the probabilities for the risk areas. 15% of a tornado in both moderate risk areas. Wind is 30% all around for both moderate risk areas and the enhanced risk areas. And hail, there's a 30% chance of hatched hail up in Iowa and portions of Missouri. Taking a look at some of the cities that the moderate risk are in. Des Moines, that's just east of you. Springfield, Missouri, you're in the moderate risk. And then you come down here, and not too much population in the Arkansas portion of it. But again, this is something we're going to watch because if any storm does form, it could quickly turn severe. Here's the day 3 outlook, and the day 3 outlook, they actually just did a rare afternoon update. They never update day 3 in the afternoon, and there's now a large slight risk, and day 3 being Wednesday, that's the day I'm really favoring more. And I think this will probably get upgraded to an enhanced risk. And you can see they have indications that they're going to do it as well, because there's already a hatched area within this. And this slight risk does go from western New York State through much of Michigan, all the way down into extreme East Texas and northern Louisiana. So this is something we're going to have to watch as well. And beyond this, there's already indications that there could be severe weather along the I-95 corridor on Thursday. Let's take a look at the fresh 18Z NAM, which just came in. You can see the storm system gets gathering over here in the northwest. The southern disturbance finally tries to exit the picture. You're still going to have showers tonight across North Carolina and South Carolina. Here's this boundary that sets up over Michigan and New York State. And look at this. It actually produces some fairly heavy rainfall. I will show rainfall amounts with this run as well. Here's the snow that comes into the Dakotas. And I'll give you this. It is moderate to heavy snow. I mean, it is fairly impressive. But again, we are in April, and it's all about timing. If the heaviest comes at nighttime, yeah, you can get some of those National Weather Service amounts. But if it doesn't come at night, then you run into issues with the sun angle at this time of year and the heating of the day, all these issues. But it has been cold there lately, so we'll just have to see what happens. All right, advancing this, here's the big thing that we want to look at. Now we're coming into tomorrow night. You can see some storms try to get going on the northern side in Iowa with the northern moderate risk. And then some more storms try to get going very late. This is after midnight, almost Wednesday morning. You can see finally some storms try and get going. So, I mean, they have the moderate risk, I think, in the correct areas. It's just so delayed it almost comes into the next forecasting cycle, especially for the southern moderate risk. And now we're into Wednesday morning, almost midday Wednesday, and you can see here there are ongoing thunderstorms along this frontal boundary, which is going to be very slow moving. We've been talking about this since last week, how I think this boundary is going to be slow, and yeah, there's pretty much good model agreement on that now. And advancing this even further, now we're into Wednesday evening. Finally, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana. Finally, you guys get into the action. The main threat here is heavy rain, but there's also a severe aspect with this as well. Again, I think we're going to see Wednesday turn into at least an enhanced risk day, probably on tonight's update. And we'll have to see. Could that need to go up to a moderate risk? I mean, there's tornado potential, there's wind potential, and hail potential. Right now, I'm confident it needs to go to an enhanced risk. The question will be, does it need to go any higher? And we'll work that out tomorrow. And as we advance this even further, look what then happens. It almost essentially stalls over central Kentucky, Tennessee, Louisiana, northwest Mississippi, and then you run into a big flash flood threat. You can see here, it just very slowly moves. Now we're into Thursday morning, almost Thursday midday, and look here, it hasn't made much progress east. Let's back this up again. Look at that. It is very slow moving, but look what happens Thursday afternoon. Remember those warm temperatures I was telling you about? See what happens here across southeast Pennsylvania, Virginia? These are those warm temperatures I was telling you about that are going to come. Temperatures are going to be near 80 degrees in these areas, not only on Wednesday, but possibly Thursday as well. Well, the NAM model is now putting out a squall line. See this? Let's zoom this in because this is pretty serious. We just had severe weather here back on Saturday. It was a real doozy. You saw my hail pictures. And it's not as fast moving as the Saturday squall line. And it's a little bit slower, so there would be a heavy rain threat as well. But this almost looks like it's trying to form a QLCS. And as we know with QLCSs, there can be little hooks, or you can get cells merging, which can result in the potential for a tornado. So it's something we'll have to watch. It's only Monday. This is a threat on Thursday. And in convective world, that's like weeks out. So we have to watch how this could potentially unfold, but it's something I am watching. All right, total precipitation amounts. Look at this. Fairly impressive in some areas on the NAM. You can see here, from eastern Texas right on up through central Kentucky, you have a swath of 2 to 4 with locally 5+ inches of rain. I am in agreement with that happening. Dew points will be very high just ahead of the front. PWAT values, which measures the moisture content in the atmosphere, they also support this as well. Let's take a look at the GFS now. Here's the GFS. You can see the storm system. You can see the storm threat in the south. We want to look at the longer ranges here. Remember, the Masters occurs late this week. The biggest golfing event of the year. One of them, anyhow. There's 4 major tournaments, and the Masters is a big one. Look what happens here on Friday. You have, over Georgia, this front is still hung up, And you can see here, it tries to get a ball of energy going. You have showers and thunderstorms, some rain which is heavy. So at least Friday and Saturday, you're running into issues with the Master Tournament, unfortunately. There's some indications, though, it could clear out in time for Sunday. Here's Sunday. But again, let's look at 24-hour rainfall amounts on the GFS for Friday and Saturday. And you can see here, it's fairly wet. And mind you, this is not a convective model. And already it's showing 1 to 2 inches of rain for this area over the course of 2 days. So that's not good. And we can look at total precipitation as well. And you can see GFS also has the heavy precipitation where the front initially stalls. And look just southeast of where Augusta, Georgia is. Yeah, that's 3 to 4 inches of rain. Not good. It's going to disrupt play. Let's take a look at the Weather Prediction Center, and you see the Weather Prediction Center is going really bullish here for portions of Texas where they're showing isolated 5 to 7 inch area. I think that should be a little bit more northeast, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Wherever this front stalls, there is the potential for training cells. Then you can see they have a second heavy axis, yep, right over Augusta, Georgia, through South Carolina and North Carolina, where there's going to be a second area of heavy rain. They're not showing heavy rainfall expected up in the Mid-Atlantic, and really it's just Thursday that we have to watch up in the Mid-Atlantic. But look what they're doing across Michigan and portions of upstate New York, or western New York, I should say. Yeah, that's 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, predominantly coming from that boundary. Look on the west coast. The northwest, yes, another round of heavy precipitation possible for you in the 1 to 7 day period. Taking a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, above average for much of the country now. It's changed. And this very well could happen. The trough in the northeast looks like the one that's going to come behind this front, because of the front being slower. The trough's not going to really do much now. There's this high off in the Atlantic that's slowing the front down. But the trough, it's not going to last long. And watch what happens on the 8 to 14 day outlook. Except for the extreme west coast and Alaska, much of the country is well above average. Let's take a look at the precipitation now. You can see precipitation below average for much of the country, slightly above average in the east and down in Texas, and that below average in the central states, that's not good for the drought at all. Slightly above average in the northwest, 8 to 14 days, slightly above average in the northwest, below average in the east. Good to see Texas above average because they do need the rainfall, but the Four Corners region, again, below average. Alrighty, that does it for today's update. We'll have another update again tomorrow on these 2 moderate risk areas. If you like the content you see on this channel, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this and be updated daily, hit the subscribe button down below. I'll see you all again next time. Take care.